This video is brought to you by BetUS Sportsbook and Casino.
I'm KJ Wright from the Seattle Seahawks, and you are watching NorbFam.
What's happening, everybody? This is NorbFam coming at you with another Hawks Real Talk episode. Kind of the first wrap-up season episode of 2025. Sad to have to be doing this when playoff games are going on, but, you know, it is what it is, and I'm excited to talk to the boys about what we thought about this season, the good, the bad, the ugly, where we go from here. And I know that, man, a lot of decisions to be made, a lot of polarizing decisions when it comes to our opinions, when it comes to our quarterback. We've got an offensive coordinator to choose here in the near future. We've got receivers we got to decide about, other free agents who are right there on the edge of being a casualty. We're going to break some of that down today and just talk about just our overall thoughts of how the season turned out. So for those of you guys watching on YouTube, appreciate it. We got like Daniel Berry, Sports Highlights, Dusty B, Seahawks 100, Rouser, and we have Brian Parson on Facebook as well. And yeah, keep watching, keep commenting. We'll try to answer some of your questions as they come in if we are able to. But first, let me just quickly acknowledge BetUS Sportsbook and Casino. Yes, they have been helping me and supporting me through this season. And you can still sign up. You still got games to play and other sports continuing to go on. You can join BetUS Sportsbook and Casino. YouTube 150 is the code. And if you do that, you get 150% deposit match and then 125% on your next two up to $5,000. And they got this new thing going on, too. If you're into casino games, you can enter the casino, not sportsbook, but for table games, slot machines. You join there, you get a 200% deposit. 200, they'll double your money, and 250% if you start your deposit off with crypto. Yes, they're getting into the crypto world, all that. So check out BetUS Sportsbook and Casino. All right, let's go. Oh, Brian Parsons. Oh, yeah, I met in Vegas, did the halftime show. I remember, Brian, you were helping with the scaffolding and stuff underneath there. We talked right after I got my bloody arm from tripping during the running back drill in the NFL experience in Vegas last year. All right, well, let's go. Let's get back to the boys right here and say hello to them all. We got, of course, from North Dakota, University of North Dakota, Sky-High Aviation. How you doing, Sky-High? Belated Happy New Year to you, man.
Happy New Year to you as well, Norb. I am doing a little less than excited. I thought, last time we saw each other, last time we saw the viewers, we were in a prime position to take the playoff spot, take the NFC West, host a home playoff game, but it was all for naught. So, there's always next year.
When we last talked, it was before the Packers game. That was our last show because right after the Packers game, I left for out of town, and boy, did things change after that. I guess I'll never have to go on vacation again during the middle of a division race because things just go south, I guess. But yeah, sadly it didn't go our way, but here we are talking about it. And there's always next year, right? So we got Nick LaBow from the east side. Nick, good to see you, man. Sporting UW, the colors over there.
Norb, Jose, always a pleasure to talk to you guys. It's been, a while, and man, to think about where we were last time we talked and now kind of sitting on the bottom. You said it earlier, the good, the bad, the ugly. That's been the season.
Well, we're not on the bottom. We got the Cardinals worse than us. We've got the 49ers worse than us.
Well, out of the playoffs, though.
I don't know which is worse. I don't know what's worse. Is it worse to be in the bottom knowing you're, like it just wasn't your year, or when you're this close and it's like, slip right through your fingers, and then you're dead smack in the middle of the pack, not getting the great draft pick position, not going to the playoffs, right in that sort of middle of the road, mediocre, just not really either side. But here we are, just like last year. Right?
Yeah.
One game better than last year, but the same spot. And the year before. We're desperately in need for things to change here. Michael Pasley will be here shortly, but he's running a little bit behind, so he'll join as well. So feel free when you guys start. We're going to get into some topics here, and you guys can chime in. We may not be able to answer all your chats, but if you do, Super chat, they'll definitely get our attention, but we'll try to answer any of the interesting questions that we have out there. So, let's see, how do we start this? I don't want to get right into the decisions that have to be made with certain players. Let's just talk about the season overall. We've already been doing that, but give me just your overall, when you look back in totality, sitting where we are now, was your perception, was the season successful? Was it okay? Was it bad? Let's put it into your own perspective of what your expectations were, and here we are, another year gone by, and how does it sit with you? Start with you, Sky-High Aviation.
Well, it's tough, from a perspective that when you look at the longevity of things, we've kind of put together a real string of mediocre seasons dating back to 2021. And you think, okay, well, we've been trying to build something for the past 3-4 years, right? And it's very, you can put it into that perspective and say, well, this season was kind of a failure / step back. Or you can put it into a different perspective, saying this is a brand new coaching staff, right? Essentially having a hostile takeover of this organization on the football side level. And, I thought the season went well. I thought there were obviously moments where I was like, what the heck are we doing out here? Why the heck are we losing to the Giants? Why the heck is this happening? But that's, I think, part of the plan and part of the growth. I think it's too early, to be calling for John Schneider's head. This is his first year with working with Mike McDonald. And like those two guys said in the beginning of their tenure together, this is a project. This is not just a 1-year deal where we're going to go out and automatically win 12, 13 games like people expected us. Like, I guess our fans expected us to. I don't think much of the national media expected us to go beyond 6 or 7 games, and we did do that. But, this is a project. Obviously this team, majority of this team has been drafted and built by Pete Carroll and that previous coaching staff. But this is going to take time. When it comes to wanting to contend for a Super Bowl, we have the pieces and we have the players that we need, right? We've got Leonard Williams. We've got a bunch of young guys on that defensive line. We've got linebackers who look to be the future, especially if we can get a deal linked out with Ernest Jones. And that secondary, these guys are second, third-year players. They're really, really young players. They're going to need hard coaching. And on the offensive side of the ball, yeah, it's going to need more work. And yeah, there's going to probably have to be some tougher decisions made on that offensive side of the ball, but you still have playmakers and they're still looking for that right guy. Obviously, they're taking their time to find this offensive coordinator. I think they need to find a guy, especially on the offensive side, who we've seen far too many times where the pass and run game are separate. They need to come together, essentially marry each other, right? They need to be a mix. We need to find that right mix of running and passing. I think Mike's going to find the guy who, satisfies his needs. I guess that sounds a little weird, but gives him what he wants on the offensive side, which clearly is to run the ball. Ryan Grubb did not do that, and that's why he got shown the door.
Well, complementary football, that's the term that he's been saying a lot. And I've been saying that too. When it comes to the Geno debate, I haven't really been saying he's the answer or the problem. The problem is we just can't run the football. And if you look at I've shown many stats in multiple posts, Facebook and whatnot, that if you look at the playoffs, the teams that are in the playoffs right now, what can pretty much all of them do that are still going? They all have a running game, right? They might have the best quarterback in the world. Some of them do, right? Yet it's not them alone carrying the team. They have running games to complement them. And without that, I don't think any of these guys go anywhere in the playoffs. And that's what makes the difference. So for everybody who just thinks we can just replace our quarterback and keep everything else the same and suddenly they'll be the savior, they got something else coming. So I'm sure that's what they're looking for from the OC to bring that balance to it. Nick, how about you? Give me your overall brief assessment of how the season went as far as your opinion is concerned.
I'd say it was a step forward. I mean, no one wants to be where we're at, where it's our, third year straight at a 9-8 and kind of right on the edge of the playoffs. But, like Jose said, it's a brand new coaching staff, a super young coaching staff too, a young team. I'd have to go back to progression. A lot of these guys got another step in. We kind of found our way in certain areas. We regressed in certain areas. I think it showed throughout the season, where our strengths and weaknesses are. And that's going to be a great way to kind of move forward and build the team up into true contenders. Yeah, I mean, the offense was not good at all this season, but I'll also go to kind of a highlight there where the defense, we haven't seen a good defense in Seattle in really past few years. This year we got that. I mean, they looked lights out at certain times. Definitely room for improvement, but lights out. Offensively, yeah, I mean, it was not good. Running the football is so important. And really, I think it goes to the infrastructure too, where, we were plugging and playing all year long at offensive line. We never really, had guys that had the chemistry together. And, you can kind of build your house on, the most lavish mansion or whatever like we have. But if it's on mud, it's not going to be your house for long. And I think that's really what we need to look at is, building that offensive line, getting those guys in there. You were talking about some of the teams in the playoffs that are running the ball, Ravens, Bills, Lions. Man, it's their front five. That's so important to this team. And I'm excited to get, a new guy in here and see what he can do. Super high. It sounds like they have Clint Kubiak, who's the Saints offensive coordinator, in the lead role for that job. And I think he's done a good job throughout his time in the NFL. I'm sure we'll go into that a little later, but yeah, I'd say I'd go back to progression. It's another step forward, and, I think a good thing's coming.
I'm going to say, for the amount of – we won 10 games. For the amount, when you look at the amount of mistakes that this team made and for the how horrid of a run game we had, how horrid of an offense we had, how we came on here every week and shit on Ryan Grubb and pretty much how Twitter absolutely unloaded on Mike Macdonald and our offense and Ryan Grubb. We won 10 games and we probably should have won 12 or 13 even with how bad that offense and how bad that defense was playing. This is a matter, right? Remember, right? Nick said if we build the nicest house, but if we build a super nice house, but it's on mud, it's going to fall, right? So we have to build it's going to take time, right? This isn't just people need to realize that this is not a 1 year plug and play team, despite us having Devin Witherspoon and Leonard Williams and Ernest Jones, right? It takes time. And we've saw to credit to what he was saying about, especially on the defensive side, right? This scheme isn't just a plug and play and go. This is a Mike Macdonald scheme that he's going to make changes week by week basis. It's going to change very quickly. It's going to be ever evolving. So yeah, it's going to take time to build consistency, to build that chemistry, to get where you want to be. And I think we're talking about taking a year. And I think next year, especially since we're retaining the majority of that core, fingers crossed, we're going to get Ernest Jones at Mike position again. I mean, the sky's the limit, right? And then you can start raising your expectations. Now that we've seen the sample, now you can raise your expectations. But you can't just we shouldn't be getting a lot of hate. We won 10 games, but even though we should have won 12 or 13. So the potential's there, right? You clean up, you play complementary football, you play disciplined football, which is what he preaches, right? He preaches that in the meeting room. Then you start looking at 12, 13, 14, stacking wins, which is what he mentioned at the end of the game in that locker room speech. So it's there, right? It's there. It's not like, oh, we got to tear it down. We got to trade DK. We got to get rid of everybody. Fire John. No, it's there. It's there. It's just going to take time. It has to take time.
Yeah, for sure. And the question is how patient. It seems like people are more and more less patient now to let things play out. I mean, look at it. Our OC had one, not even a season that he's fired, right? So we've learned quickly that Mike Macdonald is not I wouldn't say patient guy, but he's one that he decides quick. Like if it's not working, you're out, right? Got rid of our linebackers midway through the season, replaced them. That was a good move. And clearly he was not happy with the way the OC was and him were gelling, going back to that run game issue, the lack of it or lack of effort to commit to it. But let me give you my take. And Abel is here. I'm letting him get settled, and he'll jump in as well. But let me just give you my take on the season. So I have to say, for the record, I said the Seahawks would be 10-7 this year, and we ended up 10-7. So they were about what I expected them to be. So I'm not extremely disappointed. I'm not extremely surprised either. They're about where I thought they would be, which is higher than what most critics gave them credit for. Most experts gave them, I saw as low as 3 wins, 4 wins, 5, maybe 7. Nobody gave us finishing above 500, at least for most of the pundits out there. So I felt proud of the fact that I actually got it close to, maybe I didn't get the win-losses right, but I did get the total number of wins. So the expectation is about what I thought in terms of the team. I thought we'd be borderline, like that might be good enough to win the division, and 10-7 was, but we didn't win the right games. We lost the wrong games, and obviously the Rams won the right ones because they beat us by that much a hair to get the playoff spot, which we should have been in. We should have been playing Monday night at home, and we should have been advancing. If we played the Vikings the way they played the Rams in that wild card game, we'd be playing the divisional round against the Eagles this weekend. Anyway, but that didn't happen, so that's how it is. That's how thin the margin is. But so it was about what I expected it to be, and I think for Mike Macdonald as a new head coach, obviously the most winningest debut by a Seattle head coach ever. There's something to be said. Now, granted, we got that 10th win against the Rams team who really wasn't trying. They rested their starters, so I don't know how much stock you put into that last win that took pretty much the entire effort of the team to beat their backups. So when we beat them by a score, by stopping Jimmy Garoppolo, who was in the red zone. So, I mean, it wasn't like we killed them. We barely got by their backup team. So, the Rams played for the division. Possibly we would have ended up 9-8 and back in the same spot anyway, but it looks better that we're 10-7. But that being said, it just leads me to my part that is probably the 2 disappointments I have for this year. One is that, 3. The first one is that I'm not surprised they fired the offensive coordinator, but I'm disappointed that we can't keep one consistently, because the fact that we have to get a new one in here again is like, okay, we got to start over with the search, start over with a new guy, give him his year to try to figure it out. So every time you change it, it's like, yes, change it. But then sometimes when you're changing for change's sake, it's like you're having to rebuild it from scratch again. And that's always challenging. Kind of translates to the offensive line, right? Another big disappointment. No matter how many moves we've made, it seems like all we do is complain about the offensive line. And where are we again? Still, the offensive line is the problem. No matter what moves we made, what veterans we brought in, what shifts we done, what rookies we drafted, it doesn't matter. We're still going, our offensive line sucks. So the fact that we're still talking about that a year later, even after drafting, our second pick in the draft was an offensive lineman, he can't even make the field as a starter. Now they're talking about moving him from guard to center. Clearly, the path to an offensive line has never been A, John Schneider's strong points, and then B, we're just not. I'm concerned about our scouting, to be honest, because the fact that we haven't really drafted or picked up any free agent guys who can A, make it through the season, B, actually perform the way that they're supposed to, it's either a coaching issue or we're scouting talent poorly, or we're just, bringing in the wrong guys who just don't fit our team. Either way, we're back to square one with the offensive line. So I think those are the 2 biggest disappointments, that we didn't improve in those areas, that we didn't have an offensive coordinator where you go, okay, he wasn't great, but the first year he did pretty good. We'll see how he does next year. We got to start over. Lion feels like we got to start over in a sense, still looking for the answer. And then really I think the biggest disappointment was just losing the games that would have been signature wins in the way that we did, because we had so many games that were right there for the taking. Keep saying the Rams game, should have won that one. Vikings game, should have won that one. Giants game, had no business losing that game. You win any of those 1 games, and we're in the playoffs. You win 2, you're not even sweating the last game probably. So those 3 games alone are games that we should have had, and that's the difference between a 13-4 season and a 10-7 season. So, so they're pretty much what I thought they would be. It's just disappointing that we have to start over in so many things. So that's kind of my overall take. I guess I'm more on the shade of, even though I predicted this, I'm a little bit more on the side of disappointment, because I am frustrated that we're still spinning our wheels in certain areas. All right, let's bring Abel. I said Michael, that's actually his dad, but Abel is back. He was stuck in traffic and back here. Is that JSN? Is the JSN jersey? Oh, yeah, look at that. We got the throwbacks here, the
There you
throwback
go.
boys. Got the JSN over there, and then Sky-High with the brand new DK Metcalf jersey. Speaks to, I think, Sky-High. You can speak to it in a second. But what does he think about Sky-High's DK's future here? Because he just bought his jersey, or at least somebody got his jersey.
Hey,
But
you guys-
Investment.
You guys hear me, right?
Oh, you sound great. Yes. You're the loudest you've been since we were still in the running for the playoffs. So, yeah, whatever you did, it sounds good. So, Abel, we just did our takes on what our overall evaluation was of the season. What's yours?
Yeah. This season was frustrating. That's definitely one of the best words I could use to describe it. I think what we saw was kind of another one of those seasons where we went in hesitantly, but we also were expecting something, right? Because this has been a couple of years now. We have a JSN. Oh, if you hear any background music, that's upstairs.
No, you're good.
We had JSN that is like in his second year and definitely up there as one of his best years that he could have in the future. And at the end of his career too. This is a great year for him. And I feel very disappointed that didn't end out. We didn't make the playoffs and we didn't see him in the playoffs. But less of a player thing. I think it was just disappointing to have another average season. We came in with a new offensive coach and head coach, and we were like, wow, our ceiling is as high as it's been in a few years now, right? Because that was the main thing. It was like, we don't even care what our floor is. Our ceiling is so high. And it was just disappointing because now that's two straight seasons that Geno has led us to a pretty average record. And yeah, like Norb said, that last game, however you say, it was pretty fluky. But it was disappointing, and frustrating. Because like Norb said again, there were a few games that is just like, you were so close. Like, yeah, you have no business losing to the Giants. Could have beat the Rams. But what it could have, should have, right? It's execution. And I do think Ryan Grubb had a problem with that this year. I mean, he was predictable, and he wasn't running a very explosive offense, And the O-line, I mean, yeah. I think, in a way, it was nice to end the season off on a win, but at the same time, it's like, going into next year, what's this going to be like? Is our ceiling going to be 500? Or, could it be higher? Well, we'll have to see.
And that's one of the things that and a cool shout out from Cash Money Killer, said smart kid, kid knows ball. So there you go. I got a lot of people say, hey man, who's that little kid, a little elementary school kid on your show? I was like, hey man, just listen to him. I brought him on for a reason. All right. All these guys know their stuff really well. So you surround yourself with smart people and they make you look good. All right. But yeah, that's, so much of the issue there is just when we first got Grubb, the whole thing was, is he going to try to run the UW style offense with this patchwork line? Because he had that best offensive line in the entire college system, and then goes to the NFL where he's got one of the worst lines, but he looked like he was trying to still run that kind of system with plays that took too long to develop and putting Geno in trouble. And he's getting pressured while guys are still running down the field with their backs turned, his numbers showing to the quarterback. And anyway, that's just the running game thing. It's so frustrating that we can't run the football because we got to have that running game for sure.
We got two great backs too, man. So
Three.
frustrated to see.
We finally got to see
Fair enough.
Kenny McIntosh. I've been screaming since last year, where's Kenny McIntosh? And then you see him, and
He's
it's like,
fast,
hey, it's
man.
pretty good. And
Yeah.
then it's like they're just so inconsistent how they use them. And then Kenneth Walker getting hurt. I mean, all these different things that just add to the frustration of just somebody run the freaking ball. All right. Well, let's go to the elephant in the room because people want to know where we stand. Geno Smith. Let's start with the big one there. What do we do about the quarterback? Obviously, there are those people who can't get him out of here fast enough. They think he's the problem. There are the people who think, oh, no, he's great. It's just our coordinator is bad or our line's bad, but Geno's actually great. Let's break this down. You're Schneider. and you have the decision. And let me just bring this up for point's sake. So Geno Smith, this is, if you want to go to spotrac.com, and you can look up all the players on any team, what their contract is, their cap hit. So Geno Smith is at the top of that list. He is going to be 35 this year. His cap hit is $44,500,000. So if you were to cut him and not, as the contract stands right now, you would save $31 million against the cap. So that's what we're talking about right here. Obviously, they could play numbers games. If they do extend him, they could rework this. I'm sure turn it into a signing bonus. But as it stands right now, you could save $31 million by getting rid of him. Cap hit of 44.5. So that's the numbers game with Geno Smith. So let's talk about what you guys think we should do. Let's go with Sky-High. You first. You're John Schneider. What do you do about Geno Smith?
Well, it's easy. I mean, this is a very easy decision if I'm John Schneider. You keep him. I don't think that there's any player in the NFL that we're not going to pay. I mean, what you saw his salary was $44 million this next year. There's no quarterback in the NFL that will be better than him that we can't get for less than $44 million in a single year. Regardless of money, Geno Smith is the quarterback of this franchise. I think this was, was it not set in stone in 2022 when we saw that he had the breakout year? Then in 2023, he puts up the same exact numbers, and then he gets put into a completely new system, and the numbers, diminish. But in terms of athletic ability and athleticism and the way that he plays the position, there's absolutely zero regression from him. I don't understand why we would get rid of him. Yeah, he's the quarterback. He's going to take the brunt of the blame, just like Matt Hasselbeck did 7 years ago. Or not 7 years ago. Why am I thinking it's like 2015? Just like Matt Hasselbeck did when he was throwing interceptions left and right, just like Tavares Jackson did, rest in peace, just like Russell Wilson did when he would be in slumps, right? So I think it doesn't matter. Geno Smith is an above-average quarterback. We saw, every path to the NFL for a guy is different, right? And Geno just had to mature a little, right? It took him a decade, but yeah, he's here now. He's arrived, and he's going to be that guy. He's going to be our quarterback next year. Even if the mobility diminishes because he's getting older or because he's changing, because that's just what happens when you get older, right? That arm talent is still the same. He still has one of the more accurate and better arms in football. And he's still one of the more elusive quarterbacks in football, right? When you're talking about comparisons, right? You think of Big Ben Roethlisberger. Obviously, he has none of the accomplishments that he does, but you think in terms of quarterbacks, the mobility, the savviness, the elusivity that he has. Sure, you could draft a quarterback. I won't be mad if we don't draft a quarterback. I think it might be.
Even if we do, you mean if we do draft a quarterback?
No, I
won't be mad if we draft a quarterback.
I won't be mad if we draft a quarterback. I won't be mad if we don't draft a quarterback. What I care about is the fact that Geno Smith is our quarterback for the foreseeable future. There is no better option. We can draft Jackson Dart, sure, have him sit under Geno for a year, but then what if next year we get Clint Kubiak and Geno throws 40 touchdowns and 5 interceptions? Then what are you going to do, right? Then you're thinking, oh, man, I really kind of got to pay this guy, right? It's kind of like Sam Darnold all of a sudden. I really don't want Jackson Dart to play anymore because Geno Smith just put up career numbers, and he threw 20 touchdowns to DK Metcalf and Jackson Smith and Jigba. So it's a very fluid situation, but I feel like I'd get upset if they let him go.
Yeah. All right. So I want to do this a little bit more like crosstalk. So I want you guys I want to step in, crosstalk, cross-examine, interrupt on this little part of the interruption type of style here. Okay. So I think you guys kind of know where I stand with Geno without me starting to say so where I stand with Geno. But how do you address the questions of, yeah, he can lead in passing yards, attempts, completion percentage, but he also ranks way high up there in interceptions. And we've seen games where he's had costly interceptions that arguably cost the game. Rams one definitely jumps off the page. So how do you defend Geno when you've got the interception part of it wreaking havoc with the rest of those numbers, which people will say those stats don't mean anything if you keep turning the ball over? Abel, you had something you were going to say there.
Okay. I got to kind of give like a full view though. First of all, I'm seeing a lot of mixed feelings in the comments. So it's so tough, right? Because it's like Yeah, he had a lot of passing yards. He had a good completion percentage. But, like, Norm's right. Those interceptions, they can cost you the game. And I think we saw that time and time again. And one of the things is we say that he's going to arrive, or he has arrived. But the key thing is, like, he's getting older. And I'm sorry, we haven't really seen a great year from him. We've seen a couple of mediocre ones, and this one definitely wasn't great. I mean, he's gonna have a lot of passing yards when you throw a lot. I mean, we saw for the first 5 weeks of the season, he was like probably averaging like 48 pass attempts a game. You know, it's like
he was near the top there.
He was
and I guess if you were to compare to like another top thrower, you got to look at the Bengals, right? Because Joe Burrow is up there. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I know he threw the ball a hell of a lot, and he also had a lot of touchdowns, and he has a very low. I believe his interception percentage is a lot lower. So you could definitely argue, well, he's not Joe Burrow, right? Joe Burrow was the number 1 pick in the draft. He better be in that elite status. He's an elite status quarterback who's, again, sitting on the bench, not going to the playoffs. So, or not on the bench, but his team is done and not playing. But, you know, Geno's definitely has the turnover factor is probably one of the biggest arguments about why Geno's not up there with the elite, because that is the stat that eats away against all the other great stats that he does have.
And listen, I know a lot of people, like well-known people from the NFL or in the NFL, say that Geno is worth keeping, and he's a franchise quarterback. But I'm sorry, it feels like with these offensive coordinators, if we hire a new offensive coordinator and it doesn't work, you're wasting time, you know? And it's like the O-line's not going to just teleport to being great in 1 year. So we're probably going to see a lot of the same problems. And if Geno can't adapt to that and he throws stupid interceptions that cost you key games to get you into the playoffs and possibly more, it's huge. I think drafting a QB is the best way to go, and I see him as just a cap hit. I think he's ceiling.
I think what doesn't get talked about enough is leadership. And when you take a look at how young this team is from top to bottom, how young this coaching staff is, and you really look at a guy that they go around, at this point right now, it's Geno. When he was injured in that game, you saw a guy who's walking to the locker room with him. Tyler Lockett walked him all the way down the tunnel. When he got injured again, you've constantly seen guys coming up to him on the sideline. He is a leader to this team. And that is something that is so valuable and so important to a young team and to building a culture that propels you into these categories of go into the conference championship game, go into the Super Bowl, building for profound success. Now listen, Geno's 35. You're not going to have him forever. I think right now, at this point in the Seahawks and how they're building this franchise, I don't see a point in moving on from him. Jose said it. You're not going to find a guy at a price tag of $40 million who's going to play better than him. I also look at how he played. Really, yeah, you saw a lot of interceptions, but I saw him playing in an offense where he had his receivers constantly. Norb, you said it earlier. They had the backs to him. He had the lowest time to throw in the entire NFL, third worst offensive line. He constantly had pressure in his face. Meanwhile, he's playing in an offense that takes a long time to develop, you know, his routes, constantly throwing. He's at, 35, 40 passes a game. So listen, was it a good year from him? Not necessarily. Did he have much help? I don't think so.
Yeah,
I think when you go ahead. I think when you build this team out, and hey, I'm not against drafting a quarterback at all. In fact, my kind of philosophy more is to, get the young quarterback, let him sit for 2 years. I think that's what you do in this point, because, you move on from Geno, you're really where the Seahawks stand, because they're broke. They're negative $30 million. So you move on from Geno, Sam Howell's your starting quarterback, or, a rookie that you get likely in the second round, because there's not going to be a quarterback worthy there at 18.
Right.
Okay, well, I gotta jump in. All right, so just so you guys, because I was bringing up I was playing devil's advocate, because here's my feeling on Geno. As I said earlier, every quarterback that's playing in the postseason right now has a running game to go with it. All right? So you take the running game away from any of those teams, they're probably not sniffing the playoffs, and they're definitely not winning games in the playoffs. Geno had no running game. We had near the worst running games in the league. We're 28th in running, which is horrible. That's worse than some of the teams that finished much worse than we did. So we actually did better in terms of just record than a lot of teams who had even better running games than we did. My feeling on Geno is this. I don't think he's the problem. I also don't think he's perfect. When I brought up Joe Burrow, I'm not comparing Geno to Joe Burrow. My whole point in bringing it up is that he's not Joe Burrow, yet there are certain things they have in common. But sometimes his decision-making is a little slow. There are times, if you watch it, there's a guy who's open and he hesitates and he doesn't make that decision. I think part of it, maybe he's afraid to throw the interception because he does have that issue. Then, of course, the problem is if he doesn't throw it, he's getting sacked. So it's almost like that you're that quarterback in the pocket who's like, okay, I've got two things to do here. I either throw it quick and risk I might get picked off, or I wait and make the smart play, and then I'm knocked on my butt because my O-line can't protect me. So he's been in this quandary of the get rid of it quick when it's not 100% clear, or I sit and wait for it and I get taken down. He can throw some great, amazing balls. He's a great thrower, right? And
you can go. Sorry, I cut you off.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But which I encourage you guys to, especially if they go on too long. But my feeling is about Geno is he is not the long-term problem solution because he's got not a long-term life left. He's 35 in this season. So I do believe that what they should do is they need to look for the quarterback for the future. Problem is, it's probably not in this draft. Maybe it's the next year's draft. But that means we need somebody who can still continue this team and give us a chance. Geno, they should extend Geno a couple years, negotiate this contract down so the hit's not going to be as much as it is. I think he'd be happy to play. He's not going to be. I don't think he's going to command top level money in that 50 range like Brock Purdy's going to command. But he's good enough to have. You're going to have to pay him or somebody because you're not getting ready for cheap unless you can get some great pick out of the draft. Unless a Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant's waiting around the wings in there.
Yeah,
we're probably not going to find that.
Okay.
But, okay. Anyway, that's my take. So while I defend Geno because of other factors, I'm also not saying that he's the best quarterback solution out there for the Seahawks. We're somewhere in the middle. And we've got to find a solution soon. Let's
look at the ceiling here, okay? Because that's my biggest thing. If we have a team that has the talent to contend. We have a young defense. We have a young offense, relatively. We have JSN. DK is not getting any younger. And, I mean, Tyler Lockett might have just had his last year. Here's the thing. When I look at ceiling, Geno Smith, he's reached his max. I think this because, I mean, we haven't seen him, go up. I mean, listen, I understand he hasn't had a lot of help whatsoever. But at the same time, I would say the QB takes accountability for the offense's performance. And the amount of times I've seen Geno make sure he was under pressure, but a stupid throw that is very costly, and then just look up with a sad face makes me very frustrated. And again, there are guys with higher ceilings out there, and I'm just saying. Huh?
Who?
Justin Fields. You might think Justin Fields is gross. I think so too.
Oh, no.
Here's what I'll say.
Hey,
No,
come on.
absolutely
Let
not.
me talk. I don't think he's a good QB whatsoever, but I think he has a higher ceiling.
What makes you think he has a higher? What makes you think he has a higher ceiling?
Well, because he's young, and he's
just because he's young doesn't mean he has a high ceiling.
Huh?
I get that. I get that.
I'm
He's
saying,
young.
no, but you guys gotta hear me out. I'm not saying that Justin
okay.
Fields is the option. I'm not saying we should get Justin Fields.
He can run. He can run. He can run faster than Geno, but something give you an idea that he can actually throw better than Geno Smith.
That's not who I think we should get. I think Justin Fields is gross. But what I'm saying is that there's guys even in the draft. But Geno's gonna keep on giving us mediocre ceilings. I'm telling you. I mean, he had a final line 2 years ago, but he didn't even lead us to past the wild card.
Well,
here's what I have.
2 years ago, everybody thought we would go 0-16.
Yeah, true.
And we also
Here's what I have to
a
say.
pretty terrible roster.
At the point that the Seahawks are at, which is -30 in cap, and granted, they have moves to get back in the black, and a lot of the money too they free is going to go to Ernest Jones. But really, we're out of free agency. People suggest getting the big offensive guard. I think everyone would love that, but it's not doable. You don't have any money.
Well,
So you're really looking at the draft.
To Geno.
Well, here's what I have to say is you're really looking at the draft to build this team. Like it or not, your offensive line's going to be very similar to what it was last year. We're going to have competition. I hope guys develop, but the core guys, maybe you get another guy in there from the draft, I'd hope, but it's going to be a lot similar. I don't know if there's a guy available in free agency. Darnold's out. I think he's, we don't have enough money for him, even if we do move on from Geno. You look at Fields, you look at the other guys, even the guys in the draft that are available to get where you're at. I don't know that there's a guy that in the season of 2025, next season, with the weapons, with the protection, that's going to play better than Geno. That's what I have to say.
Okay.
And to argue with you, Abel, is what if you were to give Geno Smith a decent running game? And I'm not even talking about top 10. You give him a top 15, top 20. Top 15 is middle of the pack.
He had one last year. He did.
Were we top 15 last year? The whole
We
season?
were up there.
I can't remember. I know Kenneth
Caitlin
Walker
had
did.
a 1,000-yard season. Did he not?
Let me check.
I think he was just about at 900.
Here's the last thing I'm going to say on this topic. Listen, I'm playing devil's advocate with Justin Fields because I don't want him on our roster by any means. But the thing is, if you extend Geno Smith, we're going to have the same conversation every single year. I'm telling you. Sure.
So you're saying that Geno's the problem.
I'm saying, yeah. I'm not saying he's the only problem. I'm saying he's a problem. Because here's my thing.
But what other solution? I mean, we haven't presented a solution that's better.
Wait, hear me out.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. Can you say, okay, it's not him, so who else?
Okay. Here's the thing.
We're waiting for that.
Geno, I think we can keep him this year. And I want to see him with, like you guys said, a good O-line and a good running game. And then we'll see if we put him in a good situation with this one next year, which is probably going to be one of the years he has until he gets old and he stops being, or he gets less athletic. I mean, next year, like we'll see him we'll try and get him in a good environment. We'll have a good O-line, a good running game if we fixed it. And then I want to see what happens. But Geno Smith is not a QB that's going to lead you past the wild card. He breaks down in clutch situations. This whole year, I didn't feel once confident with Geno leading us into a game-winning drive.
He's had a lot of game-winning drives.
Several game-winning drives.
I know, but I didn't feel confident at all. Versus the Vikings, I'm like, I know he's not going to do this.
Yeah, but that game, you could also say the defense let us down. The defense also. He let us to take the lead, and the defense couldn't hold the lead. Yeah, he got intercepted at the end, but
a lot of times, too.
The defense,
a lot of miscommunication, too, that led to interceptions at the end of games, Vikings games. That goes to coaching, in my opinion.
I want to bring up, too, we haven't talked about the defense that much, but the defense, I think we all can say the defense improved, right? It was like one of the worst in the first half of the year and definitely improved by the end, right? But my issue, you talk about clutch. How clutch was the defense? The defense was great. Really, the Seahawks in general were great against okay teams. But when it came down to it, when it mattered, last time we met, it was right before the Packers game. We were all full of optimism that our defense was going to stuff the Packers. The offense was going to get going. Nothing went right. And our defense definitely sucked bad against the Packers. They started off, they did everything they wanted to the first two drives. And they had a chance to stop Minnesota and keep them from going down the length of the field and taking the lead, but they didn't. They gave up that big pass at the end to Justin Jefferson, and we missed the 60-yard field goal, unfortunately, to try to tie the game, and then things just didn't work out in the end. So again, I don't know how good has our defense really come. Because you have to look. What's hard about this is we asked that question: should we keep Geno? Because you have to answer that question because the John Schneider's going to do that. But I'm sure as he's evaluating too, he has to look at the context of everything, because not everything, like he says, not everything is just one person's fault. There's the coordinator, there's the line, there's a lack of a running game, and there's also the defense. If you're only looking at the results, and I think, Abel, you're looking a lot at just the end results, like Geno's been at the quarterback and he hasn't won a playoff game. It's easy to say, well, then he must suck then, right? But when everything else around him has not been good either, the end result is the culmination of all those things, not just the one. And you can't say, well, he has to be the one that saves everything because, we have no running game. Our defense isn't clutch, but the quarterback better step up and win the game because otherwise we need somebody else. I don't think that's a fair assessment on Geno's role.
Here's the thing I will say. With Geno Smith, I look at the ceiling. You're right. I probably judge more on like how the overall thing goes, and it's probably not the best assessment because there's other issues that probably contribute more than the QB's performance. You're right. Because at the end of the day, you win as a team. You don't win with the quarterback coming up with the game-winning drive. You're right on that. And most of this is devil's advocate too, because I'm just trying to find out the best way to like go at this. But I'll say this: Geno Smith's ceiling that I see as a football fan and as someone that watches him as a quarterback, I see him make some great throws. I see him have some good games. I also see him, when it matters most, occasionally break down. And I've also seen him just like be completely average. I mean, there were times during the season where it'd be like, you're right, he had the Niners game-winning drive. He had maybe the Patriots one, I think.
Base tugboat in that Rams game that we despise so much. Geno, after the 2 red zone interceptions, did lead us to tie that game and send it in overtime.
But those 2
Granted,
red
they
zone
failed in the end, but he did get us there. So
but the 2 red zone interceptions are what made it so we had to be in that position.
Agreed.
That's kind of what
I can't defend those 2.
That's actually a good point. I feel like that describes Geno. He'll throw maybe 2 bad red zone interceptions, but then he'll lead you to a comeback to put you in a position to win the game. But at the same time, you take away those interceptions, there's no need for that. And then the other thing is like, but then he came back, had a good finish, and then it went up to the defense. So I think that's actually a perfect example of Geno Smith and the 2 sides that can argue against it.
Well, you definitely take the good with the bad with Geno, and that's why I can't defend him to say he's the perfect quarterback or something, because we know there have been games where he's been awesome, and in one game he could be great, and then on another possession turn over like, what were you thinking? And it cost the game. But again, going back to the running game thing, if we actually had a running game that we could actually like first and goal from the 7, actually just punch it in and not have to throw, because we kind of know Ryan Grove was basically, we can't run, so we're just got to throw every single time. Shouldn't have to do that. So that's the other issue. When you throw and throw and throw and throw, eventually it's going to catch up to you, especially when the line ain't great at protection. So again, that's the balance. That's the whole.
Yeah, this year was tough.
The whole part.
You wanted to blame everyone because I mean the coaching in the red zone was hideous. There were times when the defense looked hideous. There were times when our passing game looked hideous, the running game. But they were all really inconsistent issues, and that was kind of the issue with this year, We can always try and pinpoint a specific problem, but I think this year was more of a year of finding our team. We made some good acquisitions. We made some choices, and, I mean, I'm excited for our setup, I don't think Geno Smith's a terrible QB at all. I wish that I could see a higher ceiling, but I would love him to prove me wrong. Maybe a QB battle with a 3rd or 4th round QB pick.
It ain't a QB battle. Geno Smith is gonna be the starter next year.
Yeah, I know.
There's no way. He threw 30 touchdowns 2 years ago.
A guy that can sit under him or show flashes.
Absolutely.
In preseason, I mean.
Abel, I agree with you. I think when you look at it, our team's in a stage of building, and Geno's the perfect guy to, I think, carry throughout the next 2 years and really build the foundation. I agree. He's not your future guy. He's not going to lead you, all the way. You're not going to win a Super Bowl. He's 35. You're going to have to move on from him. I agree. I'd love to get a guy that we could sit him under and, have, once we kind of build the foundation of the team, and get this guy ready into the offense, bring him in as Geno's kind of transitioning out of the league.
I'll say this about
But for
Geno
now,
Smith.
Geno's the guy.
I'll say this about Geno. Yeah, I'll say this about Geno, though. A lot of people ask, can Geno take us to the Super Bowl? And that's a loaded question because are you saying, can he take you with this team as it's structured right now? Hell no. We can't even get to the playoffs.
Listen.
But could he, with other things being better, could he? A running game that's like in the top 10, top 15? Better play calling, better play design, better utilization of the tight ends and the running backs out of the backfield. I think he could. We've seen other. My point is, we've had other teams win the Super Bowl without a Patrick Mahomes. Yeah, Patrick Mahomes is great, and I can argue who wouldn't want Patrick Mahomes on their team. But we've seen teams with okay quarterbacks take their teams to the promised land because they had complementary defense and running games to go with it. So you don't have to have the best quarterback on the planet to win the Super Bowl. It helps, but you don't have to have.
That's literally the 49ers model right there. If I asked Norb in 2019 if the 49ers are going to make the Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo as their starting quarterback, who had played only 6 games for them in his entire 49ers career, would you have said yes? The 49ers. In 2019, would you have said that they would have gone all the way to the Super Bowl and pushed the Chiefs to the limit there? No. There's no chance that anybody would have thought that would have happened. Same thing with Brock Purdy, despite his resurgence, right? It's a Geno-like resurgence despite the fact that he's like 10 years younger than Geno, right? He comes out of nowhere and all of a sudden starts playing really, really good, and then 2 years later takes his team to the Super Bowl. There's a possibility there, right? The team obviously is not there in the position to go to the Super Bowl, but there's a possibility there. It doesn't take a great quarterback. You look at all I'm trying to think of Super Bowl winner. I mean, most Super Bowl.
There's a good Vcash money killer. Nick Foles
won a Super Bowl.
Super Bowl for the
brother
Eagles.
name.
Hey,
and where did he go? They built a statue of him, for crying out loud. And then he was gone like the following year.
Here's a question.
Like the quickest statue building exodus of a team, of a guy who was never even there for much longer after he won the Super Bowl.
Here's a question
he just had
present
a flash
to you
of a
guys.
moment.
I absolutely agree with what you're saying in terms of quarterbacks. But really, when I look at this team, I look at our financials this year and next year. I look at the draft capital we have and what it would take to build a team that could get to the Super Bowl and win a Super Bowl with Geno. I kind of see a Super Bowl team in maybe the next, I think it'll take about 2 years to really build the team up. And I don't know what Geno looks like 2 years from now. So that's why I would think, if there's a guy that John Schneider and the experts at the VMAC really like in the third, fourth round, even second, you throw him in there.
The thing going against Geno, of course, is his age. I mean, it's like Geno finally got the starting reins like 10 years after his prime. I mean, really, he's like playing his prime out of his prime age, right? Once you're prime as a player, right, you really should be playing your prime at like, your late 20s or
third year in the
a
league.
late start. So, he can't use his legs like he might have when he was younger. But so I think for what he's working with, he's been doing pretty good.
I think Sky-High actually does make a good point with the average quarterbacks. I also think, though, that Geno, like the way we saw Sam Darnold in the playoffs, gives me a lot of vibes like how Geno would be in that scenario. I'm not saying that's how he will be. I'm not saying that's how his best will be. But it gives me that idea that he had a good regular season, surrounded by a good team, and then that's what happens. I see that being a huge possibility with Geno. But
all right, so we could go on and on about Geno. But
the Vikings got out coached simply. Their team, they did not play well as a team, at all.
You're talking about just the wild card beating?
As a wild card, they got
they were horrible.
Kevin O'Connell got sliced open by his master, pretty much. That's what happened. Kevin O'Connell used to coach for the Rams. Sean McVay pretty much, Kevin O'Connell called his bluff, pretty much. Essentially what happened is he got completely out-coached. Sam Darnold had an all-pro year, yes, but at the same time, it's a game. The Rams are hot. They're playing really good defense. We can't compare results. We can't compare results from other teams. We have to expect results from our own. And obviously, Geno, whether we like it or not, is going to be the quarterback of this team next year. He has to be the quarterback of this team. I think we take 2 steps back if he's not the quarterback of this team next year, especially when Nick talked about going forward. So Geno is the quarterback of this team for at least 1 more year. All right.
I would have really loved to got Michael Penix this year. I was in that dream fantasy.
Tell me about it.
To us. I know, right? I mean, right now the Falcons are looking like, pretty smart move those guys did over there.
We were in that
even though they're paying
I would pick
$600 million to Kirk
and
Cousins.
start him over Geno. If we were in that same spot. That's
I think a lot of people would. But here's the thing: we're not, and we don't have that quarterback on the board.
We don't have the quarterback of the future, and there's none on the radar anywhere anytime soon, unless there's some secret gem out there that no one knows about.
Some people disagree. Some people just want to stick with Geno. There's 2 different arguments, and we can't resolve them until we see next year. It's super up in the air right now. The whole season is.
Yeah.
So,
all right. So you could go on and on about the Geno debate. So let's just quickly summarize what our moves are. So I've said we need to draft somebody, preferably. It's going to be hard next year, but it might have to be the year after. Play under Geno, at least a year, and then then we're looking into it's a short intermediate term developing situation with somebody we draft. But Geno is definitely the quarterback next year. Does anybody here feel like Geno is not the quarterback next year? I think we all agree that he's going to be. Right?
He will be.
He will.
Whether you like it or not, because it's kind of like, what else are you going to do, right? So, all right. So nobody really thinks he's not going to be here. So, but Abel, are you saying that he should just play out the rest of his contract and that's it, or do we re-sign him to a new contract?
I think you draft a QB this year, and you let him sit under Geno for a year, let Geno play out his contract, and then I guess depending on how he does, you probably let him go, assuming he has another year, kind of like this. Yeah.
But what if assuming he has another year, what if he throws like 35 touchdowns and like 5
If he has a 40 touchdowns, 5 interceptions year, and he looks like he's on the rise and not getting any slower, I'll be like, doesn't hurt to extend him to another 1 or 2 years.
The problem is if he just plays out his contract, we get that cap hit we're just talking about, $44.5 million cap hit. If we negotiate a new deal with him, they can change. They can adjust that number and get a little more flexibility. Adjust,
but I'm just saying, I'm saying if the contract stays the way it is, and let's say they don't negotiate him, wait, you're saying I'm the general manager, right? So
yeah, I'll say if we were the general manager, what would we do?
Yeah, no, I think I draft the QB, let the contract play out.
There's no good QBs in this draft besides Shadur, and
you never know. I mean,
we're drafting 18, right?
We have done minimum.
18?
We have done minimum scouting on any QBs this year. So
because Geno's our quarterback. That's what I would. I think that's what this franchise.
Yeah, but Sam Howell's the alternative. So Geno has to be our quarterback.
I think what's going to happen is we extend Geno. We're going to extend Geno. We have to, especially if we don't want to take that cap hit. Especially if he goes out and puts out another great caliber season next year, right? If he goes out and throws 30 touchdowns and less than 10 interceptions, I'd say that it's worth the money at that point, right? Because if he goes out and then if we let it ride, right, let the contract ride, and he goes out and puts up superb numbers, then you're going to end up paying more for what. Then you're screwed.
Yeah,
at that point,
you're either doing the franchise tag, or he goes out and says, "Screw you guys, I'm going to go play for somebody else," and he gets a great contract with someone else.
Bad teams love to overplay players too.
Because you guys were so dead set on average Geno Smith. We'll have it this way. We'll
not average.
We'll pick a QB.
Above average.
Yeah, he is average in my opinion. 3rd or 4th round, you pick a QB. You let him sit under Geno for a year. You negotiate his contract in 2 years. If Geno plays like terrible, then you put in the rookie QB. If he has a 35 touchdown, 7 interception year, you keep him for the following year. And then we are not extending him again because he will be as ancient as Hammurabi.
We're going in circles, guys.
If you extend him, then you have to play him again for those years because you're paying him what?
Well, I said
you got to franchise tag him, right? Because he's already a free agent at that point. Well, I don't know. I don't think we can franchise him.
What's going to happen is this year, it's either going to be Geno's the future, or we draft a quarterback and Geno walks next year. That's what happens. That's
you want to? Fine. You can also keep him until he's 70. Your choice.
That's what I'm saying. There's
You
two
don't have-
options.
30-year,
You could
$500
extend him to
contract.
a smaller, it doesn't have to be a long-term contract, even 2 years at a favorable, that's good for Geno, good for the team. That's not going to be like top 5 quarterback money because he's not top 5. I'm not saying that he is, but
not top
I
10.
think he's better. He's above average. He's better than average. Come on, Abel.
He's better than who
He's
you're
better
going
than
to
I
get this
can't.
year.
I can't agree with that. I'm sorry.
If you were to take the 32 teams and list all their starting quarterbacks, you would put him at number 16?
I would have to look, but I could probably make a list for you guys, and he would be below 16.
Okay.
Wow. Well, we're going to have to
I'm
do
sorry.
that in another
I don't-
exercise.
I don't
I'm
think-
biased. I'm frustrated.
I'll
thing
say
is,
on your
The problem
on your,
is, when it comes to rating quarterbacks, everybody skews the numbers that they want to show to say, look how great he is. Like the pro Genos will say completion percentage, yards, touchdowns. That looks great. And then the haters will go interceptions, games lost, all this sacks taken.
Well, I
So
don't even
it's
think you should. I don't
scaled
even think it should be a
very soon.
label let's put on it. I think I've been preaching this.
Even Gridflow thinks he's at least barely above average, which Gridflow is like a very strong critic of Geno. I've noticed in the comments.
I'm telling you guys this. There are 2 arguments to this team, and it is too up in the air right now for me to give you a solid argument. I'll be honest. This is me lashing out on Geno because I'm frustrated with how the season went. But at the end,
We're
of
all
the day,
frustrated.
the way that I see it and the way that I've been watching football my whole life is the QB should take like 51% of accountability for that offense.
Here's what I'll say. You say he's at 16, that's fair enough. But I'll guarantee you this. 1 through 15, you're not going to get this offseason. He's the best option you got this year.
Exactly.
Oh, no, yeah. I've been saying that, like, you keep him this year.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
I don't like it being so, like, we don't have another option when he's on his final year.
I think we are limited.
Yeah, if you don't have a
Yeah,
rookie
our hands are
QB on his
tied,
final year of his
unfortunately.
contract, you're screwed. Then it has to all go up to the draft, and then if it's a bust, you're cooked.
Yeah.
Because then
I'll
Geno's
say this,
number
though.
38.
Draft picks are so valuable. Who you select so valuable. I wouldn't want the Seahawks to, be in a position where they're going to have to reach on a guy or waste a pick on a quarterback simply for the issue of they're not going to have a quarterback the next year and then screw the pick up and we end up back at square one where,
You should pick ahead of time so you have slack.
Ask the Jets about missing on quarterbacks.
Exactly.
They had the number 1 pick for how many years in the last 10 years, and they have yet to find
And that's not us.
their quarterback. And really, the number 1 pick so far, how many of them have really completely come to fruition? We've seen, these top. We had a run on quarterbacks this past year, and only a handful of them have really seen the success. Jaden Daniels obviously coming out and looking really good right now, but
Speaking of quarterbacks,
And they weren't there when we picked.
This next year for Caleb Williams is really big. It's going to determine whether or not he's actually the real deal. I mean, if you put his 1 year into a perspective, there's material that could actually sense that he might be a bust. But this next year is really big for me. But yeah, that's the Bears.
Yeah, and again, it's like
they won 3 games.
He's number 1, right? So you can't even unanimous number 1 from last year, and yet their team was horrible. And yet no one's going to say, or do they say, that he's just not as good as everybody expected to? Are they going to say, oh, well, it's the coordinators sucked and the defense sucked and he didn't have enough weapons? I think he had plenty of weapons, but something wasn't happening. But you said the quarterback's accountable for the 51%, right, Abel? So with the Bears, is Caleb Williams responsible for the 51% of why that team did so poorly?
He's young. But here. I understand what you guys mean. That's a good point.
I know, but he's young, but he's number 1. He's number 1. He should have lifted this team up.
I'm not saying for the overall season. I'm saying during a game, for the offensive performance, a QB can be blamed for 51%. And usually people don't criticize that too much. But also, we're saying
he's got a point
about
here.
The Bears, who are a known rebuilding team.
The Caleb Williams, he had some, in terms of, regardless of schematical issues, Caleb, when you look at the film, he had some issues in terms of reading defenses. He looked really, really raw as a quarterback. He looked like he was trying to do a lot of too much. But again, that's part of his nature and his mentality as a quarterback. And again, that's why I said that the second year is really good in terms of important for him, in terms of maturity, in terms of being able to read the field. Because if he can't do it again this second year, then you're starting to look into problems overall as the quarterback, in terms of he might actually really be a bust because he's not really taking this. He's not really learning and adapting to the NFL game.
Here's what I'll say.
Too early to sell.
The comparison about Caleb Williams and the Bears, they are a well-known rebuilding team, and Caleb was put in the worst position a QB can be put in. And I'm talking about a team's offensive performance during the game can 51% be put on a QB, usually without too much contention from other people. Because usually what I mean by that is like if the O-line's just letting them through, letting them waltz on into the backfield, that's a different story. But like on the passing game and the running game and everything that contributes to it, I think a QB should be held accountable for the majority of that performance. But I mean, I'm not saying it's all the QB's fault. I think that's a pretty normal conclusion. But I think Geno could especially this year, because Geno had so many pass attempts and had so many opportunities. That definitely counts for Geno. Every game, Geno was probably accountable for 51% of the offensive performance, which could either be really good or bad. That's why I thought he was so inconsistent, and I hate inconsistent QBs.
Yeah. All right. Well, we've beat this dead horse. Not to call Geno a dead horse, but you know what I'm saying. Let's move on to some other things here. Let's go to the other big question here. Some of these will be easier to answer. Tyler Lockett, is he back next year, or is he pretty much unofficially retired?
Not on his current contract.
Not on his current contract. Yeah, no.
No, I mean, I think he probably gives a very nice goodbye, and he probably is the first guy to raise the Trolls flag next year.
So you don't think no way he's back next year, Abel?
I'm not saying no way, but there's not really much to come back to. You saw the amount of targets he got this year. We saw him get like maybe 3 targets a game. He doesn't look like the guy he was when Russ was.
But is that because he's just old and he's not getting open, or he just wasn't targeted? Because again, whether it's the OC or Geno or whatever.
I think it's more of the age thing. I mean, he was the slot guy. He was the third wide receiver. I don't know. I think he's old. I think it's time to get the
I think Tyler Lockett is a valuable piece of this team, regardless of what we're paying him. Despite the fact I don't want him to be on this team if he's going to be making $20+ million. I think there's a possibility he could come back for a lesser year deal. But I think Tyler Lockett is still, he talked about it in an interview where he said he was used a lot as a decoy or a guy that would take defenders with him, so that way JSN and DK could get more targets, essentially sacrificing himself for the betterment of the team. I still think that he has gas in the tank. He wants to play. I don't know where else he would play that he would get the amount of money that he's getting from us. So it really just makes sense theoretically to cut him loose and to try and get him back on another deal. I think he's more than understanding. He's a leader in this locker room. I think he's, in terms of, we're talking about having a really young team, right? We have a super young team. I think it's also very important to have adults in the room, right? Like Tyler and Geno. Tyler is that one guy that I think it just holds stability to that wide receiver room, who, especially when DK is out there, as emotional as he is, and JSN is just a really young guy as well. So I think it's important that Tyler, we try and get Tyler Lockett on this team next year, but not with the contract that he has.
Well,
I agree.
To add on to that too, me and my dad have actually talked about this. I was going to say he's definitely the type of guy that could be a mentor. He is a mentor. And who knows, you pick maybe another wide receiver that has some promise. He can put that guy under his wing. I mean, he's definitely a mentor type of guy. He's a very well-known wide receiver. Has had a very good career. And if he does come back, that's great. If he doesn't, I mean, he could come back as a wide receiver coach. The guy he's talented, and I think he's still got stuff in the tank. But at the end of the day, I think it's a production thing. I mean, I think he only goes downhill.
So here you go, Tyler Lockett. He's only 33, right? 33.
Well,
Cap hit is basically $31 million And that's his cap hit, $31 million.
Who are we going to get that's more
shade behind DK?
Sure, we cut him loose, but there's nobody that's going to be more productive than him. If we're throwing the ball for 4,500 yards, there's nobody else that's going to be more productive than him. So you might as well cut him loose and have him back. Exactly. So there's no point in trying to get somebody better than him because they're not going to be they're still going to show the same production. So it's just. It just might as well try and have him back if you cut him loose.
I agree. I'd say if he's willing to take less money and he does this really friendly contract, I don't know why he'd do that, but if he did and he just wants to play one more year and see where it goes, then that would be great. But I personally think he's done and he retires. And it's actually
be kind of cool to see Bobo in the slot.
Bobo's trash. I'm sorry, guys.
He's not good. But
he's not good.
It'd be cool to see him sometimes in the slot get some more targets.
It'll be interesting to see too, and I think a big, decision maker is going to be the new offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
And in kind of how John Schneider decides to build this team forward, where, you get rid of Lockett. I think his contract's got to come off the books regardless. I'd love to have him back as a fan, but where does he really fit into that offense? And also, it's like, okay, what are you going to do at 18? Because, right now, Clint Kubiak's probably going to be the offensive coordinator. He's the finalist in the job, got the second interview.
He's had 2 interviews now.
Exactly. And I think an intriguing thing of him is how much he ran 12 personnel. Okay, so that's 2 tight ends. So say we're running that a lot. Noah Fant's also a fat contract that might be coming off the books. Barner looked good. You got 2 super good tight ends coming out of the draft that, maybe they're there
Nick,
at 18.
I know where you're going with this. Yes.
So are you gonna move on from Lockett and decide to go with more of a 12 personnel look where you got Barner, you got either a Tyler Warren or a Colston Loveland, and then you just roll with DK and JSN. And then, you can slide in Bobo and get some other patchwork guys in there. But the thing is so it's a big question mark.
Yeah, for sure. But I love the idea of, we need to get better production out of the tight end. We haven't had a good tight end here.
Blocking
I
too.
hate to say it, since Jimmy Graham. As much as everybody thinks Jimmy Graham was a bust, he was actually, once he got going, was actually a very productive tight end for us.
Yeah, he was
and we really haven't had anybody since.
Guys,
that's one thing we've been missing compared to all the other teams out there who has that Mark Andrews, Jason Kelsey. You got that one tight end you can always count on to basically. And whenever nobody's open, the tight end is just always count on. We just have not had that, and I thought Fant might be it. Clearly, he's not been. I mean, we've had several tight ends in and out, I like that idea that we beefed up that position.
Wide receiver is not an urgent issue. JSN's your 1, DK's your 2. I think
having the 3 though opens up your offense so much.
Sure. It does. But definitely there's other things that need to be fixed first. In the draft, you prioritize O-line.
But I don't know if John's really going to go away from his philosophy.
That's the thing. He's probably not. But all the mock drafts have us drafting a tackle or I think it's a guard with 18.
Well,
it almost seems too logical. Everybody seems complaining and saying how terrible our offensive line is. And it makes so much sense that they would actually do that.
Guys, the tight ends are so important to blocking.
Tyler Warren would be the perfect fit for this team. He would make that offense 3-dimensional.
Yep,
extremely quickly.
He can block. He can catch.
Yeah,
I've been a little disappointed. None of our tight ends have really been very good at blocking this year.
No, you need the blocking tight ends. You look at the good teams: the Eagles, the Lions, the Niners, the Ravens. Those tight ends are good. They can block. You've got to have a blocking tight end.
Kittle loves to block. He's a great. He catches the ball like a receiver, but he blocks like a
and that's what you're going to get out of a Warren or a Loveland. It's such an important position. Look at Brock Bowers, what he did this past year.
Brock Bowers has been killing it.
They're vertical threats.
Penn State?
Sorry?
What's that?
Is Warren the guy from Penn State?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I see the appeal. But
we need him.
He just reminds me of Taysom Hill. And I don't know.
We could use Ken. I've been saying this for forever. if I was the offensive coordinator, here's what would happen. I'd immediately switch up. We'd draft Tyler Warren, first of all, as that tight end. But we want to talk about three-dimensional offense, right? We automatically make it into a four-dimensional offense, which is something that Shane Waldron tried early, which I really like in his, first Ken Walker's first year, was he lined up that Ken Walker in the slot. He lined him up. He moved him around and used him a lot as eye candy in the beginning. And I really think that was something that actually would benefit Ken Walker if we got him out of the backfield more, and if we got him into that wide receiver position, if we got him into the jet, use him more like a Percy Harvin, Taysom Hill kind of guy. He can catch
Jose, you're gonna love what I'm about to tell you.
Remember that catch in Atlanta?
He can catch the football. One second, Nick, because I want you to get to that. He can catch the football. He can catch the ball. He can take the ball in the sweep. He can take the ball in the toss. And we can use Charbonnet and McIntosh as those power backs, as those guys who run that zone, who run that power, who run those traps, those counters. But Walker doesn't have to be the guy who gets forced fed on 3rd down and 1. He can be the guy that lines up in the X, that lines up in the slot, that moves across the line 3-4 times, that gets the safeties and those linebackers moving. And so that way that opens up the pass lanes for JSN, for Metcalf, for Tyler Warren if we get him on this team. It makes more sense to put him as a wide receiver / running back. That Swiss Army knife guy.
You know what offense I really like watching is the Rams. As much as I hate the Rams, that offense is McVay's really good at getting everything out of those positions.
So, with Warren, would we have to trade up?
And the Lions too.
Probably not. I think he'll be right where I think.
We'll have to do a draft. We'll have to do a draft special when we
that's what I was going to
and really kind of break this down. This is exciting. This is where you're like, okay, start looking ahead. All right, before we go too far ahead, because you start opening can of worms. You want to finish your point?
Yeah, so Jose, what I'm telling you is this exactly is talking about what you just said. So this past season with the Saints, Clint Kubiak was their offensive coordinator.
Oh my gosh, yes. Oh yes, it makes sense.
They were top 5 in the league.
Remember the
in
points?
21 personnel usage, which is 2 running backs. That's exactly what you're saying.
It makes more. It just makes more
sense.
It does.
To have you have 3 good running backs. Use them.
Exactly.
Yes.
It just makes so much more sense to have him as not as a wide receiver, just as the Swiss. Exactly. That's the Swiss.
It complements the defense so well. Control the clock. Run the ball. McDonald's a defensive guy. Let his defense rest.
Imagine Charbonnet.
There's a reason he has 2 interviews. No one else does.
Remember how the Saints started off the first 3 games? Didn't they score some god-awful amount of points, 40, 50 points a game, and then
they all got injured.
Carr got injured, and all just went out the tubes.
It's exciting, man.
No, that is exciting to look at as we look ahead at the OC. Okay, so I want to look at a couple of the guys that we have to ask questions about. So, again, going back to the chart here. So we talked already about Geno. We talked about Lockett, DK Metcalf. He's also final year of his deal, $31.8 million cap hit, 18,000 we say, or 18 million I should say. Did I say 31 million, 18 million if we let him walk. A lot of people talking about trading DK. I think it's just a bunch of talk. But where do you guys stand on DK? Is he back next year?
Yeah.
I think he is.
Anybody? Well, obviously you do because you got the brand new jersey. Just to simplify the argument, does anybody think he's not going to be on the team next year?
Unless they get a really good call. I mean, here's the thing. It's the NFL. It's a business. You're going to constantly have the phones open. No player, I think, is untouchable, unless it's some franchise quarterback, a Lamar, a Mahomes, a Josh Allen. If they get a nice call for DK, I mean, everyone's expandable. I don't think it'll happen, though. He'll be on the team.
Nick.
Yeah. And, a lot of people have been saying, when I see people hating on DK, because there are games where he goes kind of quiet, right? But I think it's because of the attention he draws, giving JSN the season that he's had. But you can't deny that, again, not a perfect player. There were some interceptions that were on DK because of the routes that he ran. The 49ers at home jumps to mind. And then, I don't know, even that last interception against the Vikings, I'm not sure if DK runs the best route on that one. That if he runs a crisper out route, that he gets that ball instead of he kind of rounds it off, and then the ball goes not even near him.
Yeah,
and
that
gets
happened at the Niners game too earlier in the year. I think DK and Geno weren't on the same page very often or very consistently, but they're both right there. If they can have that click and get on the same page, I mean, we could see some explosiveness and a big year out of DK this following year.
Yeah, I think as much as we, just side note, going back to the interceptions, there were times when I think it was, you look at the analysis and you go, oh, if DK had stayed sharp on that slant route and doesn't go upfield, the ball doesn't get intercepted. But I think what it is DK's mindset is nobody can keep up with him. And I think Geno just has to know also that DK is always going to want to go downfield. He's going to want to stretch the field. So he needs to just give him the benefit of the doubt. And instead of if there's going to be an option to cut it across short or go deep with him, take it on the deep route, because that's where DK is going to want to go. And I think if he just lets him go there and leads him that way, there'll be less interceptions. I think DK is going to have even more breakaway plays, even though some of those interceptions were some of DK's fault for cutting it deep downfield. DK's got to recognize, or Geno's got to recognize that and see that that'll be the better option, go downfield. Anyway, so DK. So we all agree he'll be here unless some shocking trade goes down during the draft.
Yep, pretty much.
Right. That would be the only situation that DK doesn't come back.
Yeah.
And then Sky-High Aviation, if that does happen, he'll be like, man, this jersey didn't last me but 4 months.
Yeah, I'd be pissed. Yeah.
Looks good, by the way.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you, I appreciate it.
Let's see. I just want to get to the other couple of the players. Oh, there's really only the last one. No, there's two. We kind of talked about Noah Fant. Noah Fant is also same situation. Noah Fant is $13.5 million cap hit. He's the least of the top 5. $9 million if they get rid of him. Are you guys feeling Noah Fant stays or goes?
I think he's gone.
I think he's gone. I think he's gone too. Especially, I don't think it's said enough about how much GMs really communicate with each other and have a feel for what teams are going to do in the draft. Somebody mentioned Tyler Warren's really planted at 13 right now. I think if Fant is gone, that kind of signals that we're going to try and go after a tight end early in the draft. In my opinion, I'm not confident that we would need. I'm not too confident that we would need to trade up to try and get him. So, especially with the way that the order looks right now, maybe I'm wrong, but obviously they could get aggressive if chatter starts going around that, let me pull up the draft order. If teams, really like, if a team
I think you'll have either Warren or Loveland.
DK is the only deep threat that Seattle has. If they do trade him.
To add on to Sky-High a little bit, or not even that, just kind of the fact about letting go Fant. I haven't seen him be enough of a game changer at all to be worth that cap hit. I think it's pretty smart to just let him
You need
walk.
at least a tight end too that can block, and Barner's super young. He showed it. He had a great season last year, and he did well in the passing game. To have 2 tight ends doing well in the passing game, I think you got to get one in there that can really block.
I think
so then we can run that.
You let him walk, and then you draft one of these killer tight ends that you guys
talked about.
It's a big cap
hit too.
I mean, for him, it's 13.5. It's not as big as the other guys, but it's big enough. Okay, the last guy on the cap,
if we could, if we could jump like Indianapolis. I mean, if we could get a feel on what Indianapolis or Miami are doing in the draft, which are about 3-4 picks ahead of us, if we can get a feel on them and possibly jump them, who knows, by offloading cap, possibly. We'll see. I mean, it's a mix of things, but I would like to see Loveland or Tyler Warren on this football club next year.
To me, this is a no-brainer. I want to see what you guys think. Draymond Jones, a name we haven't said enough. $25 million cap hit. He's just right behind our receivers, DK and Lockett. $16 million saved if we dump him. $25 million on the cap. What do you guys say about Draymond Jones?
That's a lot of money. I think
it's
either
has
him.
Has he done enough to warrant?
I think you either restructure the deal or you let him walk.
I think either he goes or Nwosu goes. And when Nwosu came back from injury, he was a little shaky for the first 2 weeks, but he really came into it. I think he's an important part to this defense. Draymond Jones has kind of the bigger hit. If you got to move off one of them, I'd go.
We're like in one of the worst teams cap wise. We're in the red.
Yeah,
we got to get some money back somewhere. So some of these contracts got to go.
have great years. I think Nwosu has the higher ceiling. I think you got to go with Nwosu.
Draymond Jones really didn't make that much of an impact this year. Derek Hall, who is obviously better than Jared Verse, there's absolutely no debate other than that. Jared Verse is not better than Derek Hall. I think we have a lot of depth at the position, and that's something that we can really afford to. We can afford to let go. I think I would like to see him actually be let go from this club. This is something that obviously, if we can work around in the drafts as well, or with a free agency pickup. But we're gonna have a lot of depth in that interior line next year. We're gonna have a lot of depth on that outside as Boye Mafe and Derek Hall and Nwosu. I mean, those are three guys still that play that outside linebacker position fantastically. And then you've got other guys I can't remember, or Robertson Harris. There's a few other names, but I mean, there's Rayshawn Jenkins. I mean, Rayshawn Jenkins, maybe that's something where, I feel like if we let Rayshawn Jenkins go, I feel like we'd have to address the secondary a little bit more earlier in the draft, which could affect possible quarterback plans that this team may have. So
I think Jenkins is about an $8 million cap hit.
Yeah.
There's Nwosu up here, 21 million.
Yeah.
Nwosu, obviously the injury was an issue too, but even after he came back, I don't know. I was hoping more out of him when he came back. I mean, he came back, got hurt again. I mean, it was just a rough year for Nwosu, but I mean, his contract's not till 27, but that's big money up there too. One of the tops.
Yeah, Rayshawn Jenkins, I feel like if we are going to cut him loose, it's another thing that's got to be addressed in the draft. Kobe Bryant really stepped up to the plate this year. I think he flourished in Mike McDonald's system, but there's no guarantee that what happened last year is going to happen this year for them.
Yeah.
So it's a tough situation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jared Verse, unfortunately, is going to win Defensive Rookie of the Year and go to the Pro Bowl. Meanwhile, Derek Hall is stuck at home. Sucks.
I remember
they forget about
we had a shot. We could have gotten Verse too, couldn't we? I think he was.
Yeah, Verse gets all this talk. I mean, I get he's a game changer, but he wasn't like a top elite pass rusher. Like, yeah, he's just a big dude, but like that's about it. That's about it. Yeah, he forced a fumble. That's about it. But like Derek Hall had like an All-Pro like year at outside linebacker, and they got like zero recognition.
Right.
It takes longer too for kind of the interior guys at times to flourish, and I think looking at year 2 with Murphy, I think he's going to be a good player. I'm not worried about him. Some people are. I think he'll be fine. And
Byron Murphy's good at the little things.
Him and Williams are just. It feels so nice to have him and Williams on that interior. It just definitely feels like a brick wall. So.
Yeah,
and Williams, let's talk about Leonard Williams just for a hot second. He had a crazy year.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God.
Definitely worth the contract that we signed him up for. I mean, we're paying him a lot of money, but we got him for a couple more years.
Pick 6. Oof. Oh, yeah.
Yep.
I gotta love big
Defensive Player of the Week. Yeah, no, he's been solid. Good leader in the clubhouse, too. So, all right, well... Those are the key guys I want to talk about. I mean, we could talk about. Somebody asked earlier, "Hey, you guys going to predict like the divisional games?" I don't know if you guys want to talk about that. You want to just keep
heck yeah, I want to do that.
You want to do that?
If you guys don't want to, I can also just do it.
Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. Okay, let's go in order. What's the first one up? It's the it's the Texans at Chiefs. So, I don't know, let's just go around the horn, I guess. Start with you, Sky-High. What do you got in that game?
This is a really interesting game. I think we're going to see a really motivated Texans team compared to – and I think they also took this Chiefs team to the limit. So is every club that's played the Chiefs. But it's really hard to predict to just go against Kansas City in general with how dominant that they've become. But – I will say that there's room for an upset here. If Houston's defense can play it the way they did previously against Justin Herbert in the last few weeks that they've played, even with all the injuries that they've suffered and how bad their offensive line is, I think that there's a decent chance that they could upset them. I think it's going to be a real close one-score game. They'll cover the spread, what the odds makers are saying.
Let's look at that spread real quick.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
Let's go to BetUS Sportsbook and Casino.
I knew it. I closed it.
Shout out to BetUS Sportsbook and Casino here. If you go to the website, of course, you get that. If you want to actually put some money on this game, assuming you're in a place where gambling online is legal, you can put that YouTube 150 code and get 150% match on your first deposit, 125% on your next two. We're talking about the first AFC divisional game, Texans at Chiefs, 9.5. The Chiefs are getting 9.5 at home against the
It's just hard to pick. It's
reigning champs.
Yeah. Hard to pick against Kansas City. I think that they get they eke the win out again, and go to the championship game.
Let me cook. Guys.
Go for it.
Go ahead.
Okay. Texans, I like it. I know everyone's trashing them. No one believed in them versus the Chargers, okay? They said, nah, Tank Dell's out. Nah, Stephon Diggs is out. They don't stand a chance. They won in dominant fashion. Sure, Justin Herbert threw 4 picks. That doesn't matter. Defense came up clutch. So, yeah, it's so weird to try and pick against the Chiefs because of, like, how dominant they have been, like Sky-High said. And, I mean, they've won 2 straight Super Bowls. Right now, it's looking like their conquest to a third one is pretty likely. But at the end of the day, like Sky-High said, every team's been pushing them to the limit. And we could see that boil over, and we could see a team eke out a win. I think Texans are motivated. I think C.J. Stroud is motivated. He has something to prove because of kind of a rough year. But, yeah, I mean, I believe in my boys in Houston. So they are going to get the win, bro. Yes.
Okay.
Keeps going down.
So
bro.
upset alert from Abel over here.
The Swifties' day will end, bro. Okay. I'm sick of it.
Okay, well, Nick, who do you got?
I got Chiefs. I think it's just, man, I like the Texans. I hope they do it. Man, Arrowhead's so tough to play in. Andy Reid's such a good coach. Kansas City, they're the cream of the crop. Mahomes, they're going to win.
I got to go with the Chiefs as well. Not because I'm rooting for them or anything, but I just think that they can struggle. Last year they struggled during the regular season, just like they did this year, right? Yeah. Eking out barely 1-score wins here and there. They could have easily been a 500 team if these games didn't go their way. And then something happens. They get to the postseason, and they're like a whole different team. They turn into some other beast. And they just know how to win. That experience, and like I said, Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, I mean, that's a dream combination. And it doesn't matter who's out there, who's injured, they find some way to win. So I guess we should throw some scores out there. I'll start. I'll say 27-24. They don't cover, but they win. Chiefs at home. Sky-High, you start out first. How about you?
It's going to be some, like, wacky BS. It's going to be like, what? We got a 23-19. 23, like, for Monsters, Inc. 23-19. I think it'll be 23-19.
Is that with the sock on the back of the monster?
We got a 23-19. 23-19. And then, like, tranquilize the guy.
Oh, that was awesome.
I know you get a kick out of that.
Yeah,
I'm going to say...
Watched it many times.
Yeah,
I'm going to go 24-13 Chiefs.
Abel?
Yeah, we're going 31-20.
Ooh.
Wow.
Let CJ Stroud cook, guys. Trust.
I'm just watching watching that Chargers game, man. It's like, yeah, they look good in the end, but through most of that game, in the beginning, Houston was slow, but the Chargers were just handing the game to them. Here you go. Take this ball, and watch it take and how about you for good measure? Just we won't show up our offense. They look like Minnesota playing against the Rams.
If the Chiefs almost lost to the Browns in the divisional, they can lose to the Texans. 2 years ago, by the way.
Arrowhead.
Yes.
Maybe 4.
That's home field advantage.
That is one.
It'll be a tough task. I hope the Texans do it.
Let's go.
It would be a shocker.
Please me more.
All right, let's go to the next game here.
Pause. What you mean?
Right, maybe not.
Let's see. The next game then, in the evening game on Saturday, we've got the Commanders at the Lions. 10-point favorites for the Lions, according to BetUS.
Yeah.
All right, let's go back to you guys. Start with let's go Sky-High Aviation again.
I've been reading the articles, and a lot of pundits say, "Oh, Detroit's going to get upset here by Washington."
Over under is 55.5, by the way, so they're expecting a lot of points in this game.
I don't think that I don't think that's the case. Like, let's be honest here. I think Detroit, despite having all the injuries, despite having all the obstacles, I think they'll take care of business. I think it'll be a 31-16 win for Detroit. Be relatively, they won't cover. They won't be the total, but I just don't see Detroit losing, even though they have all these injuries, these struggles on their defense. I think their defense just is one of those defenses where they, no matter who's out there, they go out and play their hardest. Dan Campbell will have them coached up and ready. So, yeah.
Nick,
I like a 38-33 Lions win. Listen, I think it's going to be high scoring. I think Washington's going to come to play. But Detroit, man, they're still good. They have the coaching. They have experience. I think they'll pull through.
Abel?
Yeah, I think it'll be probably I think the Lions will win. I think they are powered, like they are inspired right now, and I think they definitely want to push for something more than an NFC Championship loss. I think they'll win 34-17. You know, one thing I want to say though is I'm not sure about you guys, and I know everyone in the comments is going to say you weren't even alive. But does this Commanders team almost remind you of the 2012 Seahawks, the year before we won the Super Bowl?
For real. That's actually true.
Because with Jaden Daniels,
yeah,
that's a good comparison.
Good comp.
Jaden Daniels is the next Lamar Jackson, pretty much.
And I mean, it just like they made the divisional. I could see the Commanders contending for a Super Bowl next year. They remind me of the
yeah. They're not quite there, but they're on their way.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
They've got the quarterback.
Sense of like
it's almost like they got the linebacker and the coach as well, but you know.
Yeah, how about that? We could have had him as our coach.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of cool because my first gut reaction when we were looking for the coach search was to bring him back, and then of course. And then things, of course, changed. But it's cool to see him actually have success with Bobby. I mean, I'm happy for him, so I'm rooting for those guys too. Yeah. But like you guys said, I feel like this will be high scoring because you have a couple coaches who don't know what fourth down is, and they just go for it every single freaking time, which drives me freaking bananas. Commanders were lucky to get out of that game, having blown some like easy field goals. Like, take the points. What are you thinking, man? But they won it anyway, barely by the skin of their teeth. But I think Detroit at home is just too tough. I think they're going to put some points up. I think this is going to be a 38-27 Lions win, and they cover as well.
Okay.
All right. Let's go to the Sunday game. These are some good ones right here. All right, so let's check this out. We've got BetUS, the early game, or like just first game. Rams. Should have been us at the Eagles. Only 6-point favorites. The Eagles in Philadelphia, over under 44. Guys, who do you guys have in this one? Starting with you. Let's just keep the same pattern. Let's go with Jose.
You know, this is either one of those games where the Rams are going to be in it right to the end, or they're just going to come out and absolutely look like the team that they've looked like the entire season, which is garbage. And in my opinion, Philadelphia really never got unleashed. It kind of just looked like they were playing with their food really against Green Bay. And I think that this week, now that Jalen Hurts is a little bit more healthy and that they're willing to take more risks, I think they're just kind of going to unleash it all on the Rams, the poor Rams. Yeah, sure. The Rams, they'll probably be like down 20-3 at halftime. The final score will end up being like what? Let's go ahead and say 36-23 be the final score. Rams will put up some points in garbage time, but I have no reason to believe that the Rams will keep up. This Rams young defense, which is a pretty good defense, I'm not going to discount them, will keep up with this very, 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 very talented Eagles team who has clearly has the best offense in the NFC. No debate. And the most dangerous, I think, actually the most dangerous team in the playoffs are the Philadelphia Eagles.
You don't think the Lions have a better offense?
The Lions have a really good offense, but
Eagles, Saquon, man.
the Eagles they're just good at everything.
I know. I just
I hope we get snow in those games. That could totally mess everything up.
I
would love to see some snow.
That would. If it was, I'll go with the snow. If I'll go with a snow prediction as well. I'll go 16-3 Eagles if it's a snow prediction. If there's snow on the ground,
definitely the over under is going to be way under if it's a snow game.
The Rams are not going to win it.
The Rams are going to get absolutely dumped on.
21-10 Eagles. I think the Rams' magic ends.
I'm going to say Eagles win 27-16.
I think this game will be a little closer than maybe some of you are thinking, but I still think the Eagles, again, they have the run game. They have the running back, arguably one of the best in the league this year, just sticking it to everyone. So I think the Eagles, but the Rams, I think, put up a good fight, but I think it's still going to be the Eagles in the end. It's going to be 30-24, and Eagles just barely cover. Unless it snows, then scale that back about 7 points. But 6 point win. I'm going with the spread on that one. All right, so the final game of the day, which is probably saved the best for last. We've got the divisional AFC. This is a Super Bowl by itself right here. It's a shame that one of these teams. It's gonna suck that one of these teams actually has to leave. But we got the Ravens at the Bills, possibly in snow. Pick'em game, no favorite here. According to BetUS, over-under of 51.5, so we're going to see some points as well, unless there's snow, of course. So let's go to Sky-High Jose. Who do you like in this exciting matchup of the Titan-type teams going at it in this one?
Yeah, I'd be an idiot to say that this isn't the toughest game to predict. This is like, I still, I'm thinking about it in my head. I don't have a winner yet. Just going in, if there's a snow, it obviously is going to favor Buffalo. If there's no snow, there's still Buffalo is favored in my opinion. Buffalo's just played so good at home. They're unbeatable there. They also just look so dynamic. Everybody thought they'd be one-dimensional this year with Josh Allen. They just look so dangerous in so many ways. And at the same time, I really feel like we've seen Baltimore not really being able to rise to the occasion when it comes to the biggest of games. It dates back all the way to the last time that they were in the Super Bowl, them struggling and having these constant playoff failures and not being able to get over these humps. I think this is a Baltimore team that's going to be really good next year, but it's hard to pick against Buffalo at home just because they're Buffalo and they're just going to go out and they're going to cater to the style of defense that you play, and they're just going to beat you at it no matter how good of a defense you have. I think Buffalo is also just more poised. They're more determined. And I think, they're going to be looking at a match against Kansas City, and that's going to be a showdown for the ages right there, right? That's going to be when you talk about Josh Allen's legacy.
MVPs going at it.
When you talk about Josh Allen's legacy, when you talk about Lamar Jackson's future with this team, not future, but legacy as well with this team, just what is it going to be defined of? I think Buffalo wins 36-33 in the end.
Man, I love this game. And I really hope it snows for the one reason that I think it's going to be so entertaining even in the snow, because both of these teams can run the football with quarterback, running back. I have the Ravens in a snow shootout, which is going to be a 31-27 Ravens win in Buffalo.
Well, wait, what do you say the score is going to be? 31-37?
31-27.
Oh,
31-27, yeah.
Okay, yeah, this is definitely tough. It's funny, right? Because it's like every year you almost kind of want these teams to succeed because of their struggles in the playoffs in the past. I mean, the Ravens have had one of those, it almost feels every year like they'll have a great season or they'll be in a good position, but then it's like they just don't have that explosiveness in the playoffs. They can't keep up. And then with the Bills, I mean, you just got to kind of feel bad. Like, they are so close every year. So, Yeah, I have a feeling it'll be one of those games where both teams are actually pretty slow with it. I think it will snow, hopefully. And if it will snow, I think both teams will go at it. I saw a clip of the Ravens playing outside actually, in the snow to get used to the cold
That's
weather.
cool.
So they're preparing. But I have a feeling it'll be one of those games where it's pretty slow, but then it gets all active in the second half, and it'll come down to the wire. I actually have a feeling that the Ravens are going to tie it with or they'll be close to tying it with a touchdown, and it'll be 2021, and then they're going to want to go for 2 to win the game. And if they get stopped, Bills win. If they make it, Ravens win, and then the Bills are going to stuff them, and the Bills are going to move on to the championship to face the Texans. So, I have the Bills winning 21-20. It'll be fun.
Yeah, that's
That'll by far that one I'm looking forward to. So Bills 21, Ravens 20.
This is one of those games where, like I said, the game of the weekend, and it's a shame that the seeding worked out this way because I would have loved to see the Chiefs play both the Ravens and the Bills. Like the Chiefs have to go through both these teams to prove that they're the best in the AFC. And unfortunately, 2 of the best are going to knock themselves out, and then either the Texans, but most likely the Chiefs, will be the one standing to take the winner of that 2 games. So it's unfortunate they have to knock each other out, but. The Ravens, as much as I've been hoping for the Super Bowl matchup to be Lions-Bills for the reason you just said, Abel, about the sorry state of the years of disappointment and heartbreak that both those franchises have had.
If at least one of them win, there's some happy ending.
Right. Unfortunately, I feel like the Ravens I almost feel like it's unfair how much the Ravens have talent-wise, especially on the offensive side of the ball with Lamar and King Henry back there. I mean, it's unfair that you got 2 of the top rushers in the NFL on the same backfield, and one of them's a quarterback. I feel like somebody mentioned the point, too, that there's like 300-pound dudes on their offensive line on the Ravens. The Bills are a little bit more undersized. I feel like in the end, the Ravens are they're just so deadly with that combination. The read option, Lamar to Henry. It's like pick your poison. You either get beaten to death, bludgeoned by Henry up the middle, or you try to stop him, and then Lamar just runs it over, around the corner. You can't stop him. Yeah, or he throws it to Andrews or one of his receivers. Even though are they going to get who's the guy with Flowers? Who's the one that's injured?
Flowers is injured, I think.
I know the receiver possibly coming back or is not coming back. No. Anyway, they seem to be doing fine without him anyway. One last thing I want to touch on about the Henry thing. When we saw in the Steelers game is the Steelers just chose to try and every time on the read option, I think they were going for Henry to try and because when Henry gets downfield, it's impossible. It's over. You get past the second.
So you got to pick one to try and limit, and then you got to adjust at half. But it's hard.
They failed at both.
Yeah.
God,
they couldn't stop Henry or Lamar, so it just was a mess. Anyway, so my feeling is that the Ravens are ultimately going to beat them down in their own house, and it's going to be relatively close in the score, but in the game itself, it won't be that close. I say 30-24.
So a rematch of the AFC Championship.
Yeah.
In your opinion.
And yet there's parity in this league.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. Well, that's it. So those are the predictions for next week. So I guess that's it. I'll wrap up this show. We'll talk more as once they pick the OC, when we start talking about the draft. Well, free agency first, and then we'll talk about the draft. So we have plenty to talk about
we'll try and drag Cameron on this so that way he can.
Yeah. He's the draft guy.
The draft whiz, yeah.
Well, and then, of course, about the NFC the championship games the following weekend, and then, of course, Super Bowl. So we can always talk about those, too, as well. But anyway, that kind of wraps things up. I don't know if you guys any last thoughts before we wrap up this show. Appreciate you guys. We went like 2 hours.
Yeah, appreciate you.
I think it's always fun. I always love talking sports. Always fun to look up or look forward to. I
like the crosstalk. It was great getting into the Geno thing, which is no surprise because Geno is like the most polarized figure right now in the Seahawks. Everybody's got an opinion, and we definitely argued the crap out of that one. But I love you guys. Yeah. Love what you bring. So Sky High. Stay warm over there in North Dakota. Nick?
Yeah, it's
good luck.
above. The snow's melted now a few times, but next Monday it's going to be a high -12. So we're gearing up for that.
Whew. I don't even know what negative feels like. I've never been in
I don't
negative.
either.
I've never been sub-0 degrees.
We don't get that here.
Nope.
Just a little wet.
Yep. And Nick, thanks for being on here. Again, I know you got
Absolutely.
just a few more months of school before you finally you got any front runners as to what school you're going to be going to?
UW would be nice. We'll see what happens there. I like Gonzaga too. I mean, I'll probably stay in state, so I'll be around.
Okay,
But,
those are
yeah,
your top
it'll be a
2.
fun few months.
And Abel, you still got years of school to go yet, so
Yeah, well, we're getting there.
Enjoy
These are the fun time. Yeah, enjoy it. While it
you're
lasts,
wise ahead of your years.
And I'll be able to join my middle
Yes.
school football next year. That'll be fun.
There you go.
Yeah.
Hopefully I don't
there-
get to see cross fingers.
I think my favorite line from you, Abel, is when you sometimes during your argument said, "Of all my years of watching football," I had to sticker to myself and think, "Man, you are such a young pup compared to the gray hairs that I have on my head." But again, you are a smart dude. All you guys are.
You are
it's
too, Norb.
about you.
Don't forget it.
Yeah, don't
I
forget.
just
it
nothing
is
like
your
you
channel.
guys.
It is your channel. You could just kick me
Yeah.
off if you wanted to.
Yeah, that's true, and I've been tempted sometimes.
Yeah, I know.
All right. Anyway, that's it, you guys. So again, shout out to BetUS Sportsbook and Casino for sponsoring this program. Greatly appreciate it. Oh, and they also do have this other deal going on right now. If you're already a member, you can do a re-up bonus. You get 50% if you re-up during the wild card or the divisional weekend. So lots of bonuses to check out. And again, if you're new, the YouTube 150 code will get you extra money as well. So, all right, that is it. We'll wrap things up here. Again, thanks you guys for tuning in. Appreciate all your comments in the chat. It's great to read along while we were talking, making our arguments. But Sky High, good luck the rest of the semester over in North Dakota as you become a future pilot of some lucky airline down the line. Nick, good luck with your college search and the rest of your year. And Abel, good luck with the rest of... You said you're middle school next year?
I'm in middle school right now.
No, you're in middle school.
I'll be
Enjoy that.
Crazy.
Enjoy that. Good luck with the Chick-fil-A. Enjoy the Chick-fil-A.
Enjoy the
Have a good one, guys.
Yeah,
Guys, we'll see you later. Take care, and let's kick that intro one last time.
Oh, and sports.
See ya!
BetUS.
You guys like my little dance up